Yeah, hi there. We are continuing with our ggplot 2 tutorial. So in the previous tutorial, I built up a chart from the scratch related to the scatter plot. So I'll just quickly reach up to the same level and then we'll continue building more on top of that chart. So I'm just importing the libraries ggplot2 and lupridate ggplot2 for visualization and lupridate to deal with the date time type of data, reading the data from a file which is related to the scores made by Sachin in the World Cup matches, storing it in data frame df, and then I'm converting date column into the date time format using parse underscore date time function of lubricate package and specifying the order SDMY. That is, date should appear first, then month, then year. Now from this date function I am extracting the year part and I am concatenating it with string wc, basically to add one more column which represents the World Cup year, the year of the World Cup in which that particular innings was played by Sachin. Now this is done. Okay, now I'm just setting the options SciPy S999, so larger numbers should appear as numeric rather than in an exponential format. So building our base plot small g, which is like taking data from the data frame and using the aesthetics x-axis should have balls, that is number of balls played by such in an innings, and y is the number of runs scored in that particular inning. So this forms our the base object which I am storing it in small g. Now adding a layer to it on top of small g, which is geom underscore point, and within that I'm specifying two aesthetics. One is for color. Color is based on the World Cup year and size is on the runs. So that is the points that appear on the graph should be colored, and the color of a point should depend on the year of the World Cup in which that innings was played, and the size of the point should be based on the runs scored in that innings. So the higher the runs scored, the bigger should be the size. So let me just create another object G1. Now on G1 I'm adding another layer which is related to the labs function, which actually is used to specify the title, subtitle, and the labels for the x-axis, y-axis, and the caption. So I'm specifying title, subtitle, x, y, and caption like we did in the previous tutorial. I'm storing it in an object G2. So title is such and the score in World Cup matches, subtitle is the year, x-axis is the balls played, y-axis is the runs scored, caption is the World Cup scores. So this is all done and storing in an object G2. Now on G2, I'm just adding one more function which is related to picking the color from a predefined palette. So there is a palette called as set1. I'm using a function scale color brewer, and it will pick the colors based on the colors available in the palette set1, and that's how the data points will be colored on the graph. And storing this object in G3. Now on G3, I'm adding another layer where I'm basically specifying the limits on the x-axis, and I'm actually specifying the ticks on the x-axis and the ticks on the y-axis. So on the x-axis I want the ticks should appear at a space of 25, that is 0, 25, 50, 75, and so on up to 150. And on the y-axis I want ticks should appear on the y-axis at a space of 50, and the labels I'm giving is a customized label. So instead of numeric 0, numeric 50, it should appear like 0, 50 in the textual format, century, and 150. Storing this in an object G4, and if I quickly display this object G4 with the classic theme, it looks like this. So this is what we had built in the previous tutorial. This is our now base graph where we have title, subtitle, caption. The data points are colored based on the year of the World Cup, and the size of the data point is based on the number of runs scored in that particular innings. On the x-axis and the y-axis we have labels which are customized, and the data points are appearing based on the ticks are appearing based on what we had specified in the labs function, and on the y-axis these are custom ticks which we had specified in the labs function. Okay, so this is what we had covered in the previous tutorial. Now I'm just building further on top of this chart. So let's continue. Now this forms our now this G4 object which represent this particular chart forms our base chart. Now we'll be building on top of it. Now how do we modify axis and the plot titles? So basically, to modify any titles related to the plot or the axis, we have to use the theme function, and within theme we have basically four theme except four types of functions. One is element text, other is element line, third is element rectangle, and fourth is element blank. Any textual modification we can do using element underscore text function. Any modification to the lines like grades, major axis, minor axis, thickness, etc., that we can cover using element underscore line. If we are dealing with any particular plot or a panel, then we can use element underscore rect. And if we have to turn off any particular theme component, then we have to use element underscore blank function. So we'll use this in our continuing code. So let's start with, so G4 is what we had already built. This chart represents G4. Basically, now we are building on top of it. So what we are doing here is we are using a theme function, and I am doing some modification for the title, subtitle, caption, the title which appears on the x-axis, y-axis, and the labels. So let me just quickly run it, and then we'll go through it after doing the comparison with chart and the code. And let me just quickly print G5. So this is our new chart G5. So let me just compare it. So what we are doing here is we are first specifying the plot title. I'm just saying that the title of the plot should be of size 20, color tomato. If you see here, this is the plot title. This is of size 20, and the color is based on this color we specified, tomato color. Subtitle is of size 15, color steel blue. So this is the subtitle is of now size 15 and color is steel blue. Caption is of 12 and color is red. So if you go to caption, its size is 12 and the color is red. Now for the title which appears on the x-axis, so axis.title.x, this is of size 10, face is bold, color is green. So size is, so this is 10 bold and it is green color. The same I have applied on the y-axis. Now we have to check at these labels which appear on the x-axis and the y-axis. These texts. So if you see the text which appears on the x-axis and the text which appears on the y-axis, it's represented by this axis.text.x and axis.text.y. What I'm specifying here is using element underscore text to function the size. The color size is 10, face is bold, color is blue, and angle is 30 degree. So if you see, it is blue, bold, 10 size, and angle was specified as 30 degree. That is why you are seeing these values appearing as slightly tilted on the x-axis. The same was applied on the y-axis. So that's how we can modify and amend the titles, whether it's appearing on the uh, plot title or the title which is appearing on the x-axis or the y-axis, and we can change its color, size, font, any indentation. So continuing further, so now what we want to do is we want to modify the legend. So in this previous chart we had two legends. One was related to the runs and other was related to the World Cup year. So runs, basically this legend is representing the size, if you see. So the size of the dot is basically governed by the runs, and that is one legend, and another legend is the color of the dots, which is based on the World Cup year. And runs is obviously is a continuous field, and this World Cup year is a discrete field. So let's see how we can do modifications to these legends. Okay, the first is we can change the legend title. So right now it is coming as WC year and runs. This is exactly what is the column name in the data frame. Now if you want to do some modification in the title of these legends, then we can modify using three methods. One is the labs. In the labs we are specifying that particular aesthetic, that is whether it's color or size, and then we are setting it's the title. So if I say color equals to World Cup year and size equals to runs scored, and I'd simply just display it. So if you see in the graph, For the color legend, this is a color legend. This legend represents the color. The title is World Cup year, and this legend represents the size. The title is runs score. This is what we had specified here. So this is first method. Second method is you can do the same thing using guides function. So what we have to do is again on the base plot G5 that we had built earlier, specifying the guides function in which I'm saying the for this color aesthetic and for the size aesthetic use the guide underscore legend function and set the title. It could be World Cup year and the runs code. This will be exactly same what we had got earlier, but now this time using the guides function. If you see, this is the runs code and the World Cup year. Now next is we can use a scale. So while using a scale, we have to use a scale of specific type, which belongs to the aesthetic and the type of the variable. For example, in this case, the World Cup year is discrete in nature and this represents the color, and whereas the other legend is runs, which is continuous in nature and it represents the size. So we have to use two functions. One is scale color discrete, so because this represents a color which is discrete, and I'm specifying the name of the title of the legend using this name attribute. The second legend I want to modify is the size, which represents the runs code. So I'm saying as scale size continuous name equals to runs code. Now if you do not want any legend to appear on the chart, you can hide it using this attribute guide equals to false. If I execute this, I'll see only one legend which is related to the World Cup year. This one World Cup year. For the second one, I had mentioned guide equals to false. So it means this particular legend will not appear on the chart. Another thing to notice, whenever you are uh, specifying some value in a layer which is kind of overriding what we had already specified in the previous layer, then we will get a warning. So if you see, we are getting warning that scale of the color is already present. By adding another scale, the new value will override the previous values. So which is understandable, that because we are building one layer on top of the other layer, so whichever the layer at the top will override the values which were specified the previously if there is a clash. Okay, so continuing further, now another thing that we can do is we can specify the label names and the color used for these dots manually. Let's say I don't want colors to appear using any palette, but I want to specify these colors manually, and I want the labels also should appear our custom labels. So let's say what we are doing here is, let me just quickly execute this and then I'll compare the output with the code. So this I'm storing object in G6 and I'm printing here G6. So this is what we are getting now. So let's quickly go through the code and then compare it with the chart. So first thing I'm saying is scale color manual. So it means the color should be done based on the manual colors that we are specifying. So that's why I'm saying scale color manual. That function is used. Now name is World Cup year. So it means the color legend should have the title as World Cup year. So if you see the color legend, this is the color legend. It has the title World Cup year. Then I'm saying the labels should appear as World Cup 92, World Cup dash 96. So instead of the values which were present in the data frame, like WC-1992, WC-1996, the full year was coming. So instead of those values, the values that we are specifying here as the labels, that will be appearing in the legend. So it is the custom labels WC92, 96, and so on appearing what we have specified in the labels. Now, the another thing is, for a given value, I have to specify the specific color. So the value which is actual value which is World Cup 1992, it should be blue colored. Actual value which is 1996, that data point should be colored red. So if you see 92, The actual value is World Cup 1992, but it is labeled here as WC92 because that's what we had specified in this label. Now it is getting colored as blue color, so the color we have specified here, 96, will be colored as red, and so on. So whatever colors we have specified for each of the values, that will be applied and it will be displayed. The second thing what I'm doing here is I'm adding another layer which is scale size continuous. Now size is basically representing here the number of runs scored in innings, which is that variable is continuous in nature. So so we have to use function like scale size continuous. Now what we are doing here is we are setting the title as runs scored. So if you see in the graph, we are getting the title as runs scored. And another thing that we are changing here is we are changing the labels. So instead of numeric 0 and 50 and 100, I'm specifying the labels as duck, 50 and century in the textual format. So that is how you will see these values or these labels appearing in the legend. Okay, so far so good. Let's continue further.